When the care of herpetofauna is discussed, we often only talk about the animals themselves and maybe some of the techniques we need to make sure that animals are being kept alive and hopefully thrive. But if you move away a little bit more from the simplistic way of keeping and you try to approach your care in a more naturalistic way, you will find out that as in nature there are many elements that surround that living being that we are trying to care for. Now some of those elements are very technical, like heat, lighting, maybe a water feature, and of course the materials we use. But there's also a lot of life within this same compartment that surround our animals. Now one of those elements of life that is often a little bit approached as a more second thought, not with everybody, but still, is plants. Now plants are also living beings that can have a huge impact on the way your enclosure looks, but also the way your animal can behave and also connect or interact with its surrounding. And if you delve into the world of plants and all the different species that you can use in your setups and all of their needs, you will find out that it's almost taking care of a separate entity next to the herpetofauna that you were actually taking care of. So with that said, in this episode I want to introduce to you Till. Till is an absolute plant nerd. And I say this with love, but Till is super enthusiastic about plants. He knows a lot about them and he's really interested in getting to know more and more about plants. And I think Till is going to be a great addition to this podcast because he is going to help us explore the world of plants, all the different elements, and maybe also how taking proper care of our plants can actually help us become better animal keepers. Hello everybody, welcome to the first actual episode of the European Herpetoculture Podcast. We did a small launch episode earlier this week and now it is time to actually do what we said we were gonna do, and that is introduce the hosts to you before we are actually gonna invite over some guests. This way you know who is behind the microphone and maybe even the camera, and you get to know us a little bit better, and that way we can practice a little bit before we are actually gonna get into the good stuff, let's say like this. So the goal of today is to get to know Till a whole lot better.
Hi.
Some of you might know Till, he's part of the Greenhouse Boys, he has a very nice setup, and you've been on one podcast too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Project Herpetoculture.
Project Herpetoculture, one of the coolest ones. Shout out Project Herpetoculture.
Yeah, shout out.
And you've been on there, and the goal of this episode is basically to get to know Till a little bit better, to see what he's up to, see how he got to the point he is, any projects, and of course we're also going to talk about the goals with the European Herpetoculture Podcast. So yeah, Till, should we get right into it?
We should get right into it, but at first I want to show you something. I brought my plant of the week for you because I know you like things from Borneo, and I wanted to show you this wonderful begonia chlorosticta that I traded against an anthurium, and it's a very nice dark and velvety species with some greenish points and wonderful dark red backsides, and it's actually blooming right now. Yeah, and people can guess I'm a big plant nerd, and I thought this could be good for the intro to showcase the beauty of the plants.
Perfect. I think that's a great introduction to you. And before we are gonna get into the plants, of course, I'm very interested in how you got started with all this, but I'm mostly interested in like some of the key moments that have led you to the point you are now and the way you are approaching your hobby as you are at the moment.
Yes. All right. So I think I'd start where it all started, if that's okay. So I've always been very interested in nature and mostly animals since I was a child, like dinosaurs and stuff, but also animals and especially exotic animals. And my uncle works at a bookshop, and my brother and we always could select some books that we wanted to have for our birthday or something like this for Christmas. And one day I brought home this like big lexicon about animals. Like every letter of the alphabet had some animals, and I was exploring it, reading a lot, and I think that brought me more and more into exotic animals. And yeah, so at some point I had an aquarium, and then I got into the herpetoculture hobby because a friend of mine brought me a mantis from his Spain vacation. And as you can imagine, this wild caught mantis didn't live very long. So I was pretty sad about that. And then my parents decided, okay, you can have one or two small lizards. And these lizards became some bearded dragons. And over time, I got more and more into snakes. And I had colubrids all the time, starting with, I think, Tamnophis and corn snakes. And yeah, that was my start into the hobby, I guess. You talked about key moments, or you want to know some key moments. And I have been practicing the hobby for a very long time for myself and alone. I wasn't on the social media. I just was on some Facebook groups checking things out, and I was always looking for what other people are doing in the hobby. And I stumbled across a Facebook group, a German Facebook group called, I think something like Naturalistic Vivariums. And I I was amazed. I always knew the basic setups, but there were some German keepers who did an amazing job creating natural habitats for their animals with native plants from the habitats of the animals they were keeping. Yeah, and that inspired me a lot. So I tried to use plants in my enclosures and do it as natural as possible for me. And when I moved out of my parents' home and got into my first own flat, then I started my own Instagram channel to share my passion for my reptiles. And this was definitely a key moment. Through Instagram, I slowly got to know more people in the German hobby and started writing with some people from overseas when I started with the Trimarcon keeping. Yes, and that way, like I told in the last episode, I also got to know Ben and Flo and you, and yeah, everything kept coming together, like combining the natural or more natural enclosures together with keeping house plants. And so I developed a ongoing passion about exotic plants, and this all went through the roof during the Corona pandemic because I was sitting at home, had a lot of time at home, and then I started to dive more and more into the plant rabbit hole. And yeah, especially with aroids like Anthurium species, Monstera species, Philodendron species. And now I'm trying to keep my collection a little bit more diverse. So I think that makes it more fun. Yes. So I think that's the shorter story.
No, but that's actually funny to hear because in the launch episode you mentioned that you dislike social media in some aspects, the impact
Yes.
it has, and the way it is going, at least in your perception. But if I listen to you now, some of the key moments I hear are Facebook groups, Instagram, homepage, getting to know people. So that's very funny. And I have two questions, and I'll start with the first one, and then I get back to the plants and how you get into that. But you started with, you got a praying mantis, it died, you got some lizards, you got the pocona, and now you're keeping only colubrids and one lizard, I believe.
Two lizards.
Two lizards. Oh, it's becoming more. Did you get a baby or?
I know I have the anoa, and I also have the Lepidophyma, the night lizard.
Ah,
Yeah,
that's true. That's true.
it's
Um,
always hiding, so just counts as a half lizard.
yeah. So, okay, so two lizards, but you mentioned your focus is also your interest is colubrids.
Yeah.
What was there a certain shift, like from the lizards to the colubrids, or was it also something that just evolved while you were searching for info on social media in the nature books? What made that shift happen?
Yeah. At first, I would like to say something about the social media. You're totally right. It did have a huge impact on my story inside the hobby because I wouldn't be where I am now in the hobby, and I got a lot of inspiration, and I got to know a lot of very great people that I call my friends now through social media. So I really love that. And I like to share what I'm doing. What I don't like are these algorithms, like getting addicted to these reels and stuff, so that it's working more and more just to keep you scrolling. And these habits, I know these habits, I have these habits. I also fall into that and waste my time. And I mostly dislike at one point these waste of time where I don't search for inspiring things, but just keep scrolling. And I also dislike sometimes the toxic behavior of a lot of people on social media inside the hobby and outside the hobby. But I guess that's just how people are. Um, yes, but I'm very thankful for all the experience I made on there and who I got to know over that. And about my shift inside keeping animals, um, I think I just wanted to get started with keeping reptiles, and the bearded dragons were just something that they told me at the pet shop were what I should do. Um, so a classic start, but then yeah, read a lot of things, checked out what is possible, what kind of animals are there in the hobby and stuff. And I noticed that I'm most interested in snakes, and the colubrids were like the right start for me because they don't get massive, they aren't dangerous, they aren't venomous. So something that you could pitch your parents that you can keep it. And yeah, that's how I got into them. And they got me hooked because colubrids are mostly very active, very curious, very interesting, and don't just lay around. And I think that was something that got me hooked. And I still love colubrids. And yeah, the lizards came back again after my Pogona died when I met Flo and Ben. So like with this greenhouse I built, I originally only built it to keep plants, but then I was like, it would be cool to have an animal in there. And then I decided for an anole because he likes to climb, he has plenty of space in there. And the Lepidophyma, the night lizard, was actually a gift from Ben. And yeah, right now the Lepidophyma is living in my personal favorite enclosure. So it has a nice, in my opinion, nice planted vivarium with plants mostly from Central America, where it comes from. And yeah, I really enjoy keeping that species. But it came to me by accident. And I also have I also have some spiders. Forgot to mention that. Yeah,
Yeah, you
but
recently got some new ones, right?
yeah, Hannes exchanged some Hapalopus species against some plants when we met at the Terraristica Expo in Hamm. And these are pretty cool. These are like dwarf tarantulas. Right now they're like just this size, won't get much bigger. And yeah, pretty cool to keep. You see them very often. They have a nice coloration. Yeah, interesting
Cool,
species.
cool. Maybe for the listeners, what colubrids do you
Oh,
keep at the moment?
yeah, right now I have a Central American indigo snake that's Drymarchon melanurus unicolor. So not the black tail one, but the, yeah, even colored One looks a bit brownish beige. And yes, that's one. Then I also have an older corn snake, Pantheropus guttatus. I think I have this guy now for 12 years, maybe. He's a male, and yeah, he's doing well. And I also have a pair of Elaphus carinata. These are these Chinese king rat snakes, very interesting species, bright yellow and black. I think you kept them too, right?
I did, yeah,
Yeah, you
several
had some.
times actually.
How did you like them?
I like them a lot. I didn't like the way I kept them.
Okay.
Um, they are way more active, as you said. They are very active and also reactive. And the way I kept them at the time wasn't fitting for the species. But every
Yes.
time I see pictures of some bright yellow ones or the Guianensis,
Oh, they
my
are
God,
great.
that's such a
Yeah, they
beautiful
are
snake.
great. I would love to keep them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But right now, you should check out my female later this year because she's still a little bit in color change. And now I think she won't get very blackish and she is like flaming orange on the top and gets very yellow at the bottom of her chin. And I think she will look amazing later this year.
Yeah, she looks really cool. If anybody is curious, you have it all on your Instagram. But I saw the
Yeah,
pictures, and she looked like a Fijuan, or I don't know how you pronounce it, the locality actually, not like the
yeah.
classical Carinata.
Yes, I bought her a little bit after the mail, and I think I posted a picture of her at some point in a Facebook group asking uh, what the people think she will develop in which direction, because these snakes change their coloration when, for the listeners, they start very, yeah, not very bright. They look more like dry bamboo leaves or something like that, and they will change their color while they mature. And yeah, I asked that, and after that, the seller contacted me and said, "Oh, maybe we made a mistake and accidentally didn't give you a classic one, but this locality." So I'll check it out. But at some point, I've heard that maybe this location isn't even from Fujian or how it is called. And there are some people, I think, that say it's like just like a coloration or a morph and not really a locality. I looked it up on iNaturalist and selected the Fujian region, and I only found classic ones there. So maybe it's just something to gain money. I don't know. But yeah, we will see. We will see how she will develop.
Oh, cool. I had no idea. Okay, so you have your snakes. As you mentioned, during the pandemic hobby, you took like this huge leap with the hobby and also with the plants and collecting all the plants. I do wonder, did you already enjoy naturalistic or planted setups before COVID hit? I could almost say. And was it just exaggerated during that period, or was it two hobbies that you were able to combine almost when you found them?
Yeah. I think I did both before. Like if you scroll a bit down in my Instagram, you can also already find, I think, pictures from 2017, I think, where I got my Drymarchon Melanurus unicolor male, and I built his enclosure, and I think I already started decorating it more naturally and planting it in, I think, 2017 or 18. So that was already a thing, and I tried some things with my Thamnophis I kept then. Um, yeah, it had its ups and downs. Some things were working well, some things not so well. I think you have to figure it out a little bit for yourself. What works good with plants and snakes. It's not always easy. Um, and I already had some house plants, but more like yeah, I have a Monstera that I bought 2016 from IKEA, and I still have that one. And yeah, the casual photos and Sansevieria, or how they are called. And yeah, during COVID, I had enough time to read further into that, and I found out what amazing species are out there. And of course, I wanted to have them all.
As you mentioned in your intro that you got on some Facebook groups where actually naturalistic keeping was promoted and exhibited, I would also almost say. So you think seeing that shaped the way you are approaching your hobby, or was it already something you were interested in and you just found a group that showed you how it was possible?
I think it changed my perspective on things, and it shaped how I looked at it, like you said, because yeah, if you just know some things you Googled or from the typical websites, and you've seen the classic reptile stores or something like this, um, yeah, how do I say it? Some things don't seem achievable for you if you don't know people are doing it in private. You know what I mean? You look at great naturalistic enclosures in some zoos and think, wow, that would be nice if you have something like this at home. It can inspire you, but I think I was pretty young. I was not experienced with building stuff by myself. So I needed this inspiration to know what is possible, I think. And if you see people are doing this, you think about, oh, I could do something like this too. Okay, I can try at least. And yeah, that started things somehow.
That's really cool. It almost gave you maybe the confidence that it was possible and you could try
Yeah,
it too. Maybe, I
yeah.
don't know.
And it's always great if people don't gatekeep and share some things. And I think YouTube also helped me a lot because there are so much tutorials about building backgrounds and planting enclosures. And when you get more and more into it, you can evaluate what's best for you. And if you made some experience building things, you can check out, that's maybe not my way, but this is. And yeah, you kind of have to learn how to, yes, evaluate which content is the right for you and what you want to try out, because there's so much, and this can be also very overwhelming, especially for the start. And now I'm very happy that I know some people that are doing great stuff, and now I can ask them what's the best and don't have to check everything out that's on the internet.
Cool. Again, it just shows you how impactful social media also and how valuable social media also can be depending on how you use it. And as you mentioned, I can imagine that for a lot of people it can be a lot. So learning how to filter that and find your own way is almost a task on its own, journey on its
Yeah,
own.
it is. I
Yeah.
imagine it's very hard for young people that start in a world with so much information and also with so much fake news. Uh, Imagine you are very young and there are all these fake news and stuff, and how do you know what's wrong or right if you're young? So very important to teach people how to like have a responsible way to act on social media and how to work with information you get on there. It's very difficult, I think,
Yeah, for sure.
nowadays.
Maybe a good topic for one of our podcasts.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yes, right away. We're writing it
Taking
down.
notes.
We're learning as we go. So I think that's a great insight in how you started and also a little bit on what you're keeping at the moment. Is there any project you are working on currently where you are very excited about, or where you yeah what are you working on till?
Yes, I think there are some things in the pipeline, but I don't have like this big project right now. As you know, I moved to another place later last year, like I think in October. And during that time, one of my very beloved animals died. I had a big Drimacone coralis that you also showed in the video you made at my place. Yeah, so that was not very nice. And now I have like a 2 meter enclosure that's empty. And during the move, a lot of plants, yeah, said, nope, I don't like that changes. And so right now, everything with spring coming and me being more established in the new flat, everything is slowly coming back. But yeah, I won't say I still have to pick up the pieces, but I'm not 100% happy with my snake enclosures right now. So yeah, after my next vacation, I want to improve them more, make them plant them a little more, and yes, try to make them more naturalistic, nicer. And right now, I'm trying some things out with the Chinese king rat snakes, with some Chinese begonia species, to have them also in nice planted enclosures. So these are some little improvements I want to make. And I also want to do something with the 2 meter enclosure, the PVC one, where my Dramacon rice used to live in. And Ben and I had the idea of making it another plant nursery for my place with like a grid back wall where you can hang epiphytic plants, so like plants that grow on stones or on wood. And I recently got more into staghorn ferns, like the Platycerium species that started when I visited Indonesia last year. I fell in love with them. You can see some over there. And yeah, that's something I got into later last year. And now I want to, yeah, I think I have some nice species. Some are coming in later next week, and then I have enough of them and want to see where this is growing. And yeah, these are some things I'm working on right now, but I don't have this project where I want to build another big thing because in this flat where I live right now, I probably will live for another year or 1.5 years, um, and will most likely move to another space. And so I don't want to build something that perfectly fits in here, but I don't know where I'm going in like 1.5 or 2 years, and then have to rebuild everything again. So with the setups, I want to make the ones that I have right now as nice as possible. And when I move to a place where I stay for way longer, I build some bigger things. Walk-in enclosures for the Elaphis would be great. That's a little vision I have. That would be cool to have them in something where they can climb more and hide more because they like to hide a lot. Yes, these are some ideas I have.
A walk-in enclosure for your snakes.
Yeah, that would be great.
That's cool. That's cool. So it sounds also that you are more focused on providing better spaces or care for the animals you currently keep than
Yeah.
any maybe new additions. How do you resist the urge? Because there's so much cool stuff in our hobby and we see all these pictures because this is also what happens on
Yeah.
social media. Of course, we get influenced positively, but there are also trends and we get exposed to all these amazing animals. I know I need to keep myself, I need to put a stop on things sometimes. So how do you manage that?
I think the plants helped me with that because um, before I got deeper into that, I was also like, I need this species of snakes and I need this animals if I have more place. And with plants, it's easier to collect because it's just more practical in terms of space and care. And if you have a plant you are not happy with, you can just gift it to friends, you can sell it, you can trade it against other plants. I had a big Anthurium magnificum that wouldn't get happy with me in my place, and I decided to trade it. So I got this nice begonia I showed you, and that's always the fun part. And you can also do this with animals, but I don't want to collect animals like Pokemon cards and always give them away if I'm not happy with them anymore. So I think the plants help me to cope with this collector's instinct, and this helps me. And like you said, I want to provide space for my animals I have, and maybe I will get some more like smaller species with like little lizards or spiders or something like this. It's easier to provide them with a nice big space, but with these bigger colubrids or bigger snakes, it's always more difficult. So I don't plan to buy another indigo snake, for example, even though I love them. I would love to get a yellowtail indigo snake again after mine passed away, but I decided it's better to stick to the animals I have and provide them with more space when I like upgrade my flat or move to a new place than to buy another animal that gets 2 meters or longer. And I think at least for me, it's nicer to provide them with more space than using the space for other animals. So if you see me in Hamm buying big colubrids, remind me of this episode and say, you lied to us.
Nice, but that's very cool, and I do understand that, especially with, as you mentioned, animals are now Pokemon cards. I've sold and exchanged some animals quite quickly in the past, but I definitely, especially as I've gotten older and appreciating the animals as for what they are more and more, and not just for what they could offer to me, then that definitely changes. I don't like selling at all at the moment. I really hate it.
Yeah, same here. I also enjoy, I mentioned I like to trade plants. I like to gift plants. I feel like this gives me so much joy if you just trade plants or gift some friends something, because it's a little bit like what goes around comes around. I've been gifted so many cool plants and people did nice things to me, and that helped me a lot getting where I am with my collection. And so it's always nice to have somebody else. And you said you hate selling things. It's always a hassle. Like people don't want to pay money, people don't have time. But if you just share with your friends, it's always more joy for everybody. And I feel like you can do this with plants a lot. And that way you also get to some nice new species for yourself. That's something that I experienced. Like, for example, on the first episode, we joked like Ben is the salesman, and he's always telling me like, yeah, you can propagate more plants and sell something and do a business. And I totally get it. But for me, it's like, no, I just want to. Sometimes I, of course, sell plants, especially for the expos, to keep my costs low with buying feeders. But I think it could rip off some joy I have in this hobby if I would change everything in the direction that I just want to make money out of it. I think it would stress me out.
Sounds good. Keep it as a hobby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I do understand that. Oh, that's so cool, Till. I think we are getting a nice view into what you are currently doing and how you have certain viewpoints and what your interests are. So, one of the questions we are gonna ask our viewers before we are gonna get into No, you know what? Let's do this question, this other question first, because the goal of this episode is, of course, for people to get to know the hosts a little bit better. You're gonna be one of them, and yeah, as people might notice, Till loves plants, Till likes colubrids, and Till is mostly gonna be the person that if we're gonna talk to people who use a lot of plants, keep colubrids, or like the naturalistic setups, Till is going to be probably one of the main hosts to join on those talks. And yeah, you're going to be one of the hosts. And we have talked about starting this podcast for a while now. We're finally doing it. And I'm very curious, like, what is your goal for this podcast and in joining this? What would you hope to achieve with what we are starting with this?
Yeah, I think in the starting episode I told I and I think I said it 3 times in a row. I want to get inspired and learn something, and I hope that people get inspired and want to learn something. So that's still my main drive, but I also thought about it a little bit more since we recorded that episode. And for example, I remembered when I was a guest on Project Herpetoculture, at the end of the episode, I told people to like, yeah, I would like to get in contact with like-minded people. And if you have a question, just message me, or if you just want to say hi, message me. And there was this one guy that said, hey, I just listened to your episode. You said I should message you. Hi, here I am. And I was so happy about that. And I, I love how this is an opportunity to connect people worldwide. And yeah, I think there are so many interesting people and people who are doing great stuff that I don't know yet. And if I would love to get to know them and yeah, get in contact with them, even if they are here as a guest, or even if they just listen to the episodes and like it and text us. I think that's also something like the positive part I like about social media. That's something I want to expand.
The same positive impact it had on you. It's really cool that you want to make something positive out of this and make it valuable almost. I think all of us have that idea to hopefully produce something valuable for whoever is listening, or at least for ourselves and our guests. So that's very cool. And one of the questions we will probably ask all guests, it has to do with the name of this podcast, European Herpetoculture Podcast. And you've been on the podcast, you've been on Project Herpetoculture, I've been on a few, Ben and Flo also. And a question we often get is, what's the difference between European herpetoculture and other herpetoculture? And I wondered, did you ever experience European herpetoculture as a separate thing before you got asked that question? And if you did, how would you describe how it, yeah, how we do it almost, I want to
Yeah,
say.
I think I noticed some differences very early, like on the Facebook groups and on Instagram, because I didn't knew people keeping animals in regs, for example, and this is something that the US hobby showcases a lot. So that was something I noticed, and I thought like, oh, okay, that seems to be different. Um, and what you also see a lot from America are like bearded dragons in an aquarium-sized container with fake grass and like a hammock to chill in, and yeah, stuff like that. But I'm still wondering if we just if the US keepers just show some things like this more than the people in Europe. I feel like the European hobby isn't that much on social media like the people from the US. So I can't really tell if people overseas do it more, like this style of husbandry, or if they just show it more, because later I experienced there are also a lot of ball python breeders here that also keep their animals in racks, or people that have some interesting techniques to keep animals. And there are also a lot of great keepers in overseas, like especially when you look in the dart frog hobby, there are very great naturalistic enclosures over there also that some people would name more like the European style. So I don't really know. I I think social media can, or it gives a perspective that things like this are more in the US hobby than in the European hobby. But like I said, I'm not sure if the Europeans just don't show it as much, because I've already also seen some room full of Elaphe carinata also kept in racks, like with very big animals here in Europe. So it's not just a US thing.
It's not like here everything is great and wonderful and
No.
Disneyland, and it's very different on the other side of the pond. I do agree with you. I think part of it is the marketing, the way what it is shown on social media and the number of people that are showing it on social media. Listening to you on this point now and thinking about it, I almost wonder if there's like European herpetoculture or there are just different niches within herpetoculture as a whole worldwide. Like there are the people who keep their animals in a very simplistic way. There are the people who enjoy their animals just as a pet. You know, like many of the bearded dragon keepers, except for some that went a little bit further. And then there are the people who enjoy the more naturalistic setups, or you know, going all in with a certain species. So that's something that came up to me now. So I'm very curious what our guests are gonna answer to that question. If we should even ask it. Do you think we should ask the question?
I think at least for the first season, so that we can think about it at the end of the season, what we learned, what the people told us, and that we can evaluate on that, what we learned with the people. But I think this don't has to be the main topic of every episode. But of course, I'm interested in answering that question too. Like you noticed, I don't have the perfect answer for that. So I would like to hear some other opinions on that.
Same, definitely. Same,
Yeah.
definitely. I'm very curious about what will be the result after, 25, 30 episodes. See how far we get in and see what is our conclusion, I almost want to say.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe we should find some rag keepers from Europe to get them on the podcast.
oh,
To
I'm
show
sure
them
there
also.
are. I'm sure there are,
Yeah, there
definitely.
will be.
Yeah, there. I think there's us Europeans are just a little bit more to themselves, a little bit more private, and also all the different languages don't help.
True.
You know, it
That's
makes
true.
it all very interesting. But and when we are talking about Europeans, we are not talking about the EU, of course. We're talking about Europa and maybe
Yeah.
some parts of Asia, that connect to it. So that whole range of herpetoculture. Yeah.
So that the British and the people from the Swiss don't feel excluded.
No,
We talk
you're
about
still
YouTube.
welcome. It's up to
Yeah.
you, of course. You're in or out, it's all up to you. But for us, you're still part of the game. At least the
Of course.
continent.
Yeah. Yeah, but you said something I also had on my mind. I think it's more normal in the US to show what you're doing in general, not just in the hobby. And yeah, I think social media has, or at least had over the last years, a different impact. And I feel like maybe it's just the perspective from someone who was only once in the USA and got most of his knowledge from the internet. But I feel like in the USA, it's more normal to like film yourself, do vlogs, or showcase what you're doing on the internet. and that way you show your hobby more. And like you said, the people from Europe are a little bit more for themselves and share their things with their friends, but not with the whole world.
Yeah. Or we are just getting old and seeing the younger generation spend a bigger part of their lives online.
Yeah, maybe we have to rant about the newer
Yeah.
generations now at that
And
part.
that's it. It's a different generation. Only stupid music and what they are wearing. It looks so ridiculous. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
So we got to how you got started. I think we got a great insight, a little bit in again your reasoning and how you approach certain things. We talked a little bit about the European Herpetoculture and what this podcast is gonna be about. And before we are gonna end this video, I'm just wondering, how do you think the future of our hobby looks like? And or
That's
what do you hope it looks like? Maybe that's a better
yeah.
question. What do you hope it looks like?
I hope it will get like more the holistic approach and more the approach of conservating species and doing the best for the animals you keep, providing them with yeah, the best things you can offer them possibly. That would be a direction I would like to see, like more from the perspective of the animals and not just collecting cool stuff. Um, that's something I hope for. But the future for the hobby itself, it for me, it's difficult to imagine because at one point with technology evolving more forward, it's I think it will be easier to give animals a good home and keep them in proper setups, provide them with the right humidity, the right lighting to make everything in a vivarium more like in nature. I think the technique will play a bigger and bigger role. Something we could talk with Ben, I think, for hours, like innovative new stuff. Um, that's on the one hand, but on the other hand, and that's something not just in Europe, you can see it in the USA as well. There are more and more states that start regulating the keeping of exotic animals. Is it due to the risks that the authorities see with dangerous animals, like very big snakes, venomous animals, or monitors, or on the other hand, because of invasive species, like in Florida? I think that's the best example. There's a lot of things going on, and in Germany, with every incident of a venomous snake escaping, there comes more regulating. Where I live in North Rhine-Westphalia, there are nearly all venom snakes prohibited since a few years because there has been an incident with a cobra, and I feel like this is becoming more, and the regulations will get stronger, and with animal rights movements, which are in parts very understandable, the pressure that is put on the politicians is growing bigger, and I don't really see an end of it. So who knows? Maybe we can't have our hobby like now. What do you think about it? Are there any regulations in the Netherlands that are growing stronger over the last years?
Yeah, of course. In the Netherlands, it was a free for all for a long time. Would almost say no regulations for venomous snakes. Also not really for other animals except for primates and big cats. And for the rest, we could do a lot. Of course, depending on CITES and other native laws, protective native animals. But we are facing a positive list for the mammals that if it is not stopped and the problem is there's gonna be a positive list. It is gonna be there. That was decided many years ago. But every time they want to imply it, it gets pushed back because some clerical error of because it was not set up correctly or whatever. So there's going to be a positive list. Just the way it's going to be, put in place is not fully decided yet. So in July, the positive list for mammals should be put in place. And then we are going from the estimated 300 species plus mammals that are kept in the private sector in the Netherlands. We will only be allowed to keep 30 of them. So there's only going to be 30, so that's 10% on that positive list. And on that list are also the horse, the water buffalo, the house cat, and just species that are of course are kept and are part of a very big very rich hobby. If you decide to ban horses, you're gonna have a problem. That's such a big business, so they put those on there too. So that's a very tiny amount of animals we are allowed to keep. And if that happens, the next thing is going to be the birds. And if that happens, then it's going to be reptiles, and then it's going to be fish. So I'm pretty pessimistic about it, about the future. Of course, there's still space to do some stuff, and I am all for being honest on which animals are suited to be kept in captivity, but it depends more on the keepers and what they are providing than the simple positive list, because most animal welfare discrepancies and abuse that's happening is happening with the rabbits, the horses, the cats, the dogs, and of course they are kept more also, so you will see more of them. But those are also animals that a lot of them simply won't die under the worst conditions. So they are surviving in often suboptimal conditions due to neglect or people simply not knowing. And you're not going to change that by banning a whole ton of species that a select amount of people are going to keep, that are dedicated to those animals, like Ben. You're gonna prevent somebody like Ben to keep his animals the way he's doing, while the situation pretty much won't change.
That's also the big risk I see with the positive list, and I fear that something like this will come. I think there have been a lot of discussions about it in the EU also, but it also has been neglected. And yeah, the animals that live under the worst conditions are mostly the common kept species, because you can just step into the some store and get them and keep them how you want. But I don't think there are any keepers who get some super expensive, super rare Ophaga species just to keep them in a shitty box, neglect them so they die. That's just not happening. But these animals, where you actually can have an impact on conservation in the hobby, these will fall over because they will never be on a positive list. And I think that's a very big risk with this. Yeah, things are heading to with the ideas of positive lists. Yeah, but maybe that could be a cool discussion for a roundtable episode.
Yeah, we should do that. We should do it. It's very interesting, because as we are talking about this, there's so much I want to say and get into. And I think that's also the reason we are starting this podcast. It's because we are either listening to Project Herpetoculture, Animals at Home, different podcasts, which have very interesting conversation with guests. And then there's this certain point you pick up and you want to get into it, but you can't. And a YouTube comment isn't gonna work. So I'm very looking forward to those conversations for sure.
Yeah, same here.
I think we have discussed a lot. It was very fun. It was fun to try this, and I'm sure we are gonna get better before each time. So before I'm gonna wrap this up, is there anything you would like to still say or you felt like was left on the table?
Oh, I don't think so. I think we, like you just said, we have a lot things to talk about, and I think we can have endless conversations where we are drifting in different directions all the time. So even if there would be something that's left on the table, um, I think we can note it if we recognize and talk about it in one of the next episodes. I think there will be enough room for that. But yeah. I hope the listeners got a brief idea of who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm loving and what I want to achieve with this podcast and with you and with my animals and plants. And yeah, if you have any questions, just message me, message Stefan or message our account. And I think we'll find a way to reach out to you and answer your questions or take it on one of the episodes.
That's a very cool add, Till. And as you mentioned, if anybody is listening to these episodes and there are certain points that you picked on and would love to go deeper into, let us know and get in contact with us. It might be a very cool episode, one you might be able to join also. So please reach out to us. And I think this is also going to be the end of this first
Yeah, I
actual
think so.
episode. I think we've done pretty well, especially doing two back-to-back podcasts for our
Yeah.
first time trying this. So for everybody who made it all the way up to here, thank you so much for listening, you lovely listeners, as your title is now, I believe we discussed
Yeah,
yesterday.
we can
Yeah,
agree on that.
and if you have any comments or any questions, please let us know. Yeah, this podcast is going to be on YouTube and Spotify, so you can both comment on those places. And of course, we also have our Instagram. Everything is linked. The next episode is going to be with another host. I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for
And
your
see you on
time.
the next one.
See you guys. Bye bye.
Ja, dag. Oh ja, goedendag, fijne
Guten
avond,
Abend.
tot ziens. Goedenavond.
Bis bald.